In today's video, I'm revealing the simple framework I use to make every Retell function bulletproof. This is the exact framework I use for my clients. And this framework is organized by the three components that determine whether your functions will work reliably or fail unpredictably. And the same framework applies to all possible functions you can use in Retell, including your own custom functions. The best way to show you my function framework is with an example. So let's go to add function, and we'll use call transfer as an example. These are the three components for the function framework. Number one is the function structure, the description strategy, and number three, the prompt integration. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how to implement each of these functions to create voice agents that are ready for the real world. I'm Alejo from Amplify Voice, where we've deployed voice agents for dozens of clients and run workshops 4 times a week where builders bring their broken agents, broken functions, and we troubleshoot them live so they're more ready for the real world. One of the things that we've noticed is that the mistakes are usually the same. So this 3-step framework comes directly from fixing production systems and teaching hundreds of builders. Let's dive into each of the components of the function framework. Let's look at the simplest possible example, which is the end call function. We have number one, the structure of the function. In this case, simply the name of the function. Number two, the description. This is a prompt in itself, and it describes what the function does. It can be as simple as this function ends the call. Then component number three is the prompt integration, which is when to use it. We're giving instructions to the agent to know when to trigger it. Very straightforward. End call. When the user says goodbye or the conversation gets to the end of the flow, trigger the end call function. The more structured, the clearer that your explanation is for when to trigger this function, the better. But don't worry, I'm not gonna leave you there. Thank you for watching, and remember to never stop prompting. No, just kidding. Okay, so let's actually look at how this looks in the real world, not just in theory. You now know the three components is the structure of the function, the description, and how you integrate it into the prompt. But there's more to this. This tool usage section is part of a larger structure, which is what we call a system prompt. This is the prompt structure I recommend, and it has delivered really consistent results. I'll leave the video where I teach you this structure linked above. And you'll notice that this prompt has markdown, meaning these different hashtags. So this is a main section and this is a subsection. The more hashtags, the deeper they are in the nest. 1 hashtag is a main section, 2 hashtags is a subsection, and it can continue with 3 or more hashtags. So under instructions, we have this tool usage section. And one key lesson in using functions effectively is what I call coherence. Coherence is simply, if the objective of your agent is booking an appointment, then it would be coherent to have an appointment booking function. And it would also be coherent to explain in the different stages of the conversation and in the example interactions, how to go about that conversation. Asking the user for a preferred time or offering the user some available times. And coherence is that instruction, let's say you are proactive about offering some available times, has to be expressed and coherent throughout the whole prompt and the function description. It doesn't mean you have to repeat it over and over again, but you want to help the agent have clarity on what comes next and how to go about that. And the opposite of coherent is misaligned. For example, in stage 5, if I tell the agent to use the end call function in a way that's different that I explained in the tool usage section, then that would be misalignment. And that is one of the main mistakes when it comes to building functions. And the problem it causes is inconsistency in your voice agent. And the other biggest mistake is misaligned components. So not only when to use this function in the prompt, which is describing when to use the function, which is when there's strong differences between how you explain when to use the function in the tool usage, and how you describe what the function does and how it works. The misalignment between those two things can also cause inconsistencies with your voice agent. So let's keep going with the next functions. So end call was function number 1. Let's go to the next ones in order. Call transfer. Component number 1 is the structure of the function, and the options we have are changing the name of the function. We're going to touch on description later, because now we have some other components that we didn't have in the end call function, which is who to transfer to. Whether it's a static destination, always the phone number, or a dynamic variable, which you can capture before the call or during the call with the extract variables. But you can also do dynamic routing, which is if this, then transfer here, or if that, then transfer here. You can do cold transfer, where the AI just transfers the call to a human agent and the user continues the conversation naturally. But with cold transfer, the user has to restart the conversation with the human agent. So then Retell also implemented warm transfer, where the voice agent will call this phone number and then detect whether a human picked up. And if they don't pick up, they can actually come back to the conversation with the user. But if they do pick up, we have what's called a whisper message, in which the voice agent will talk to the human agent in private without the user listening, and it can share some details about what's happened in the call so far. Super handy. This can be a prompt with dynamic variables, or it can be a static sentence, also with dynamic variables. Then the three-way message would happen after the voice agent is done giving the whisper message to the human agent. Then the user joins the call and the voice agent says a message to both of them. And right after that message is done, the voice agent hangs up and the human agent and the user continue the conversation. Then custom SIP headers is something for a different day. If you're curious about SIP, I did a video on it that'll linked right above. And if you're curious about dynamic variables, I also made a video on that and on customer memory, which will also link. To focus on the core of the function framework, I'm gonna do a simple call transfer, but I'm also gonna make the description a little clearer. What that might look like for a simple call routing agent is with dynamic routing activated, where there can be a transfer to support or sales departments, the description would add something to this. For example, this function transfer the call to a human agent. The support department takes care of issues with product maintenance. The sales department takes care of calls related to not yet closed sales. So if we're trying to be coherent, let's save this and then go to component number 3, which is the prompt integration, when to use this function. Something along the lines of when the user shares whether they've received their product or not, transfer to the corresponding department. And yes, ideally we would want to be more explicit. If they haven't received their product, then transfer to the sales department. If they already have their product, then it must be product maintenance that they're calling about, so transfer to support department. But what this allows us to do is to generalize. What if there were 10 departments? What other conditions could we add? Remember that you can always add more call transfer functions, and they can route to different places. So you get that option too, where transfer call only transfers to the sales department and transfer call to the support department. But if you're really trying to be coherent, then we would change the names of those functions to transfer call sales, transfer call support. We would change the names of those functions here, and we would change the descriptions of those functions as well here. We would remove the portion of the support, and we would make this a static destination, bam. So remember, there's 3 components: the whole structure and toggles of the function, the description of that function, which is a prompt in itself, and then the actual integration into the prompt. When would you transfer to sales? When would you transfer to support? Let's go to the next function. This is agent transfer. This is a new function. The agent transfer function transfers from your current agent to a different one of your agents. One common way to use this would be if a transfer call happens, but it fails, meaning the person on the other side doesn't pick up. This is on a warm transfer. So we would transfer to another agent that might, for example, take a message. And for the description, something like this function transfers the call to a message taker agent. The execution message should be empathetic to the frustration of the user. What's the execution message? It's simply what the agent says while it's activating this function. Why do we want to be empathetic to the frustration of the user? Because they just try to get transferred to an actual human, but that human did not pick up. So we make sure that we take their message, and for that, we have the message taker agent. So we explained what the function does and how it should work. We have this optional execution message. And then for post-call settings, this is interesting because we can have the end of call report with both this agent history and the transfer agent history. And remember that this agent that the call gets transferred to will have access to all the dynamic variables and the whole conversation so far. Now we're gonna save this. And now we need to explain in the prompt, which is component number 3, when to use this function. So we follow the exact same format: tool name, and when to use this when either of the transfer call functions fail, trigger the agent transfer function. Very straightforward, very effective. Let's keep it going. Now we have the most widely used function, which is check calendar availability and book appointment. So function framework component number 1 is the structure of the function. What options do we have? We have name, we have API key, event type ID. Something from cal.com. Well, this is the cal.com integration of appointment booking. So we're gonna need to go to cal.com to pick up some of this information. And then the time zone, which you can actually leave empty, or you can make it static, like leaving America, Los Angeles. If you're curious about these time zones, you can go to TZ Wikipedia, and bam, you'll see down here every possible time zone and how to write it. This is the format that you're looking for. If you haven't integrated Claude.com before and you want to figure out how to implement appointment booking into your agent, you can click my calendar integrations video, which will link above. So let's go to component number 2, which is the description. This is fine when users ask for availability, check the calendar and provide available slots, but it doesn't always work very reliably. Let me show you what I mean. This is what this function should look like. There are a lot of issues that happen when agents try to use these functions. So you need to specify all the parameters that are actually being sent to Cal.com. Those parameters are start time and end time. These should be full absolute dates, such as Thursday, 2025, May 5/15, 2025, 10 a.m. I know this is horrible, but this maximizes effectiveness. How do I know that? Because when looking at the function responses from Cal.com, we saw that this is the format that it comes back in. So it's less likely that there will be failures. And these are bugs that maybe Retell or Cal.com eventually fix, but I want to teach you how to build good voice agents now. So some of these things might seem obvious, but they're very important. For example, end time should always be later than start time. Always checks for slots in the future. Right now is current time. And finally, provide up to 3 available slots max, meaning don't read every possible time for the next 2 weeks, because that's what Cal.com sent you. So this is going to be the description for check availability calendar. That was component number 2. Let's go to component number 3, which is when to use it. But instead we need to ask ourselves, what is this function related to? Well, this function is inextricably linked to the book appointment function. And what normally says when users ask to book an appointment, book it on the calendar, there's a few other things that we're going to add in order to maximize the effectiveness. When users ask or agree to book an appointment, book it on the calendar. And then we go through each function parameter. The time parameter should be a full absolute date, such as Thursday, etc., etc. The time should always be in the future. The time right now is this. The time zone parameter should always be this. In this case, we had a set time zone parameter. The notes parameter should have a 1-sentence summary of the conversation. The guest parameters should be this template email. The name parameter should be first name and last name. These are dynamic variables. We actually have it before the call, but you can also pick them up during the call with a function I'm going to show you here in a second. And the reschedule reason is first time booking. Wait, why do we need so much that is completely irrelevant to booking appointments? We've seen many errors come through when the agent tries to use these functions, but doesn't fill in these parameters. So we fixed it by telling the agent, hey, just use this. So one of the small annoyances of using Cal.com is, at least so far, they haven't fixed that part. But the important thing for us is that our agents work reliably, and this makes it work reliably. Then finally, we have that execution message again. So when using this function, we say answer with let me see. So hey, can I book for Tuesday at 2 p.m.? So we say when users ask to book an appointment, the voice agent will answer with let me see. We're gonna save that. Now let me show you how we transform these 2 separate functions into one combined flow that makes the user experience that much better. So let me show you. If the book appointment cal returns the time is unavailable, say Tuesday 2 p.m. comes back, hey, that time is not available, then use the check availability cal function to check availability with a wide time range. Let's say it's the next week or 2. You will receive many available options, but you should offer only 3 options max, phrased in natural human speech, such as, let's say it's Alejo has availability on Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time and 3 p.m. or Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. So then out of the 20-30 results it receives of available slots, it's gonna know how to phrase them. But remember that in the example interactions, you need to show an example of what it sounds like to have a conversation where it flows like this. And again, if you're curious about how to build good example interactions and stages, go watch my prompting video that I linked before and it's down in the description. So what does this do? It prevents those awkward moments where the agent is checking availability and then it blurs out a bunch of times and the user can't keep up. And it's like, what was that Thursday time that you said? And now we try to book the appointment and then it fails and then we end up in a loop with the user and that's never nice. This flow where we're asking for a time from the user, using the book appointment function directly, and then if that comes as failure, then we check availability and offer some other times to the user. It's all about user experience. And if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of how to book appointments and integrate Cal.com with a bunch of different apps, you can go check out the calendar integration video. Let's keep it going. Now we got press digit, which is IVR navigation. Again, component number 1 is the name. It also includes a pause detection delay, where the higher this is, the more time it's going to give the IVR to finish speaking and giving all the options of the IVR. So I like keeping it at 3 seconds. And then the description. We first have what it does. This function presses digits on a keypad to navigate an IVR. And then how to use it. Navigate to the right person or department or to the closest best option. Well, what is the closest best option? So that's going to be component number 3. So now we can save, and what that prompt integration would look like is for the press digit, after the IVR is finished presenting all the options, trigger the press digit function to navigate to the right person or department, coherent with what we had described in the press digit description. But we're also adding in this order of priority. We're looking for this first name, last name. They can be dynamic variables, which really help in real world use cases. Then the next order in the priority is the department of interest. It could be sales, it could be support, depending on your use case. And then finally, the receptionist. So if neither first name, last name is mentioned in the IVR, the department of interest is not mentioned in the IVR, then just navigate to receptionist. This is a really effective way of navigating an IVR. Okay, we have just 3 functions left, which is send SMS. I've done a full video on this function and different ways to use it. Retell just released the 2-way SMS chat agent. And same concept, component number 1, which is what is in the structure of the function. This one includes an SMS content that could be a prompt or a static sentence. Then component number 2, which is the description. I think that SMSs have a lot of potential, especially when they happen during the call, because they can add flexibility to what they send. So you can add flexibility by saying something like, if the user is interested in buying a home for a real estate use case, send them this resource. And if the user is interested in selling a home, well, send this resource. And we can say send the appropriate resource with a nice greeting. Or we can hard code the message. We're gonna save. And then finally, component number 3, when the user shares whether they want to buy or sell a home, trigger the send SMS function. Second to last, and one of my new favorite functions, is the extract dynamic variables. So number 1, what is the structure of this function? And we have the function name, description, and variables. Okay, we're gonna see this in a second. We wanna extract user details. That's gonna be the main thing. And what those variables can be are things like name. You can describe exactly if it's the user's first name, and what type of variable, text, number, boolean, which is true or false, or enum, which is these options. You have choice 1, choice 2, choice 3. For now, we'll keep it a text because we're just trying to extract the first name. But we can also add more, like the email. It's also going to be a text type. We're going to save that. And now we can add the description. This one we're going to keep really simple because it's just extracting user details. What we really want to dig into is the prompt integration. So we're going to save this with name and email, extract user details. When the user has provided their first name and email, trigger the extract user details function. If the user hasn't provided any of the information required, then ask them. Right? So we have that coherence between, hey, we need these details, but the user hasn't provided them, so let's ask them. And now the very last function, which is the custom function. For some of you, this can look like a lot, and that's fine, because every function we just looked like has all of this. But most of this is hidden away in those other functions, because Retell has taken care of that. No endpoints, timeouts, headers, query parameters. But if you really want to get good at building functions, let's walk through this together. Function framework component number 1, the structure of the function. This will include a name, a description, an API and endpoint, which is why the custom function is so awesome. You can pretty much communicate with anywhere on the internet. Your N8N, a knowledge base, a research agent, and this endpoint looks like anywhere else on the internet. You also have to be aware of what kind of endpoint it is, if it's a post or a GET request. And then the timeout just means how long are we going to give the function until we receive a success or failure and some details of the function. In this case, it's 120 seconds, 2 minutes. Then headers, you're rarely going to use this, but when you need things like authorization, they would go here. Then query parameters, I honestly prefer not using and instead using a body, which allow us to add some variables that we're going to send to the endpoint. For example, the name and the description should always be this dynamic variable that we actually picked up from before. We're going to make this a required variable. And if you're just starting out and we want to simplify what this function sends, you can enable this and there's less information that is going to be sent to your server, so easier to manage if you're just starting out. I usually leave this on. I want to keep track of everything that's happening in that function. I usually leave this off because I get more information that I can work with, like the call ID and such. Then response variables is also a new feature where wherever your function, say your N8N function, sends back to your server like success, which might be a true or a false. Then account details. You just have to make sure that whatever is written here is what your function is sending back. The word success has to be in that JSON. And then the usual speak during execution and what the agent should say. And then speak after execution is turned on by default. And you should only really turn it off if you want this function to get triggered and then for nothing else to happen. The conversation just continues naturally. Like sending some data to your CRM just to keep track of. So we have the custom function, you should name it accordingly. You should create a prompt integration sentence. The same exact way we've done it with every other function. Now let me leave you with some important tips. When functions aren't working the way you expect them to, audit all three components. Everything in the function structure, the description of the function, and then the prompt integration of the function. Do you find any things that are incoherent? Number 2, start with bigger models, and then when everything works perfectly, when you've tested it in production for weeks, everything's nice, maybe then you can consider going to a mini model, like 4.1 mini or GPT-5 mini. And number 3, consistency in your prompt. If you're using Markdown, use Markdown all throughout the prompt, not just the titles. Put a hyphen for lists, do subsections, do numbered steps. The more structure, the better your agent will be at following instructions. You now have everything you need to execute on the function framework effectively, and it's 3 components: the function structure, the description strategy, and the prompt integration. This framework lets you implement any function in Retell effectively, including custom functions where you can integrate any other system. And with just this, you tackle 80% of the common pitfalls that makes functions fail. But building voice agents that are ready for the real world needs the other 20%. And that's very tailored to you, your use case, how you've designed the conversation. And I'd love to help you get to the next level. So there's a few different ways that we can work together. Number 1, you can book a private consultation below, so we can meet one-on-one for 90 minutes and deep dive into your use case and revamp your systems. Number 2, you can submit a project for me and my team to work on for you. And number 3, you can join our school community where we're all learning together and where we share more of the insights that we learn from real-world clients. We have 4 workshops every single week, including 2 build hours where I get to dedicate time to you and session by session get you in the right direction. There are issues that you're gonna hit that you're not gonna know how to solve, and that's normal. We have a whole community of more than 100 members that have gone through pretty much anything you can go through. And we are all ready to help you. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe because it helps others find this video as well. And I'd love to hear from you what's a function that you've struggled with that you're gonna go implement this function framework for. I reply to every single comment and I'd love to read yours. And as always, remember to never stop prompting.